I'm going to shift gears now and go to the Beethoven Archduke Trio, and decided to go to the second movement, and rather than starting in one of the more obviously challenging or moving or whatever moments, I'm going to start at the beginning, because I really need to savor this theme, even though this piano is not singing in the same way that the concert piano will be. It's important to me to get more of the sense of generosity of pace and attitude. And I think that I discovered the other day in rehearsal that applies really well to some of the more challenging spots too. That if I'm a little bit more generous, breathe a little bit more, listen a little bit harder, everything tends to fall more into place. I still need to practice, but I'm going to try practicing in a different fashion. I need to refamiliarize myself with all aspects of this movement, because it's ravishingly gorgeous, I gotta say, but it's challenging in all kinds of ways for control and refinement and phrasing and flexibility. So here goes. And I think my partners are going to take a space when they do that sort of thing. Beethoven's hand division here. It's actually the most comfortable. And then a reminder that it's only a triad. I'm going to go to a 5-3-1 triad position so that my body tells me the sonority. It thins out. And 1-4. These are the kinds of decisions sometimes I allow to be made arbitrarily in performance, and that's silly. If I want more control and command, by signaling 4-1 here, for example, I immediately feel more connected. I'm already on 4-1. 5-3-1, yes. The violin. So we have to mix our colors together. My texture is thinner and my hands are further apart. I would do this anyway, but I'm going to write, because of my hyper-consciousness about this process, 4-1 on D and F sharp. It'll give me better control over the double slur there. Probably done it forever. And here I'm going to let the slur be 5-5. And do it with my foot. It's just so much more comfortable than 5-4. Then 5-4. So it's only the thumb note that holds. Okay. Yum. Okay, here's where some of the sublime accompanimental pattern. It's not actually accompanimental, it's thematic, but it's feathery at the same time. The cello is sottovoce, and she has these little utterances. That's not how it's written, I'm just fleshing it out, so that's what I want to hear. Is completely indecipherable right now because I've fought through obviously several versions of the fingering. I seem to recall that I decided to shift on the second, make the second hand position after two notes rather than doing very well for the right hand. Okay, I think doing that, playing a two-note group. Makes me feel the calmest and makes the angles in my hand the most neutral. I go to third on the last beat in the left hand. I like that too. And I want to start on fourth finger in the right hand. And I can't believe I'll be able to read that because there's so much else written there. Something sublime about being able to hover around the keys and not to work, not have to huff and puff, and still have there be tonal control. Whoops, especially on the right notes. A, I even wrote A and ignored my writing. What I've been saying about my own body. So here's what I'm deciding, at least for now. I'm going to move my hand all the way over to 3 and 2 because it's so easy to grab. There's no feeling of insisting that I stick my fingers in places they don't feel good doing, and then back up to 1, 5, 1, 4 for a fifth and a fourth in white notes. So octave, 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 fourth is already there with 2, then move. motion, but that's always the trade-off, is the motion when your hand is feeling really good, more graceful and more efficient, than moving less, but feeling that as a result you create a demand for yourself that is always inherently uncomfortable. That's where we get into deep philosophy while pondering fingering. So, well, am I going to do the same thing? I mean, am I always going to go to 3-2 here to optimize that? That seems silly afterwards here. So what makes it different? Why would I do it here, but why wouldn't I do that? Well, because I don't like the coming down from 5-4 here. Let's see. Here I'm going up. Ah! So I have a reason, raison d'être. Now I will do up, up, up. These octaves are just fine, starting from the thumb. How interesting. Same thing here, 3 and 2. So it's this and this and this. This by itself, these two, 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 these three. Excuse me. All that. Felt this to be a really uncomfortable passage. And I think I'm on the verge of making it more comfortable by making little decisions like that. 2-3. Sometimes talking to yourself or talking to an unseen bunch of people really comes in handy because you articulate your concerns, your conflict. Pleasure this is giving me. Now let me make it sound that way. This is feathery light, and both of my partners are playing hair solo portrait. They're hovering too. For today's body, should be 2-4, 2-3. I can be more neutral here with 4 than with 3, and closer to being up here. So, subtle difference, but meaningful, I think. Well, you know what? In terms of grabbing this chord, maybe 4 on the top makes more sense too. No. Whoops. Now I'm putting it under the wrong notes. So what that means in turn is that 1, 2, and 2, 4 represent a group. If I'm going to 2, 3 here, it's not not because that's the ideal fingering for A to C sharp in the left hand. That would be 4. Actually, 5-3 would be ideal. That's not useful. What I really want is to grab the second inversion A major chord. So by drawing a line, I make the thought process associate all of these notes with one another. That makes my hand feel that the A C sharp 3-2 makes more sense because it's part of that larger hierarchy. So nice, very nice. Reminds me, far too often pianists don't practice the slow things, the things that require considerable thought. But interestingly enough, they can require considerable technique. In other words, when something is fast and furious, like the passage work I've been practicing online, it's obvious. You need to be able to negotiate gesture, fingering, and all that sort of thing at tempo. But the nuances of color and shifting and comfort and the exposures of line when you're playing slowly are so significant that very often you need far more sophisticated technique to make that work. And this is just reminding me these subtle little differences are hugely important for my sense of well-being. Anyway. Right in. Again, actually it makes a lot of sense. When Beethoven repeats a note, he's often finishing some gesture on the first of the repeats and starting a new one on the second. And musically that works very well here, but also physically it works very well. So I'm going to 1, 3, 5, then 1, 2, 4. There's plenty of space between these chords to reset the hand each time.